Alright guys, so I'm back again with another quick win. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what I call a headline snap effect. They're quite popular in Netflix documentaries. I'm going to start by making my background texture, which is just going to be newspaper, old newspaper. I'm just going to kind of stack them all in my composition. I'm just going to play around with the scaling. I'm going to play around with the blender modes just to kind of get a look that I think will be nice. The reason I'm stacking so many on top of each other is because I think all of these pictures have good qualities that I like. I'm going to add what's a pulp texture. We created this in one of the previous tutorials. Essentially, it's just a turbulent noise, and we messed around with the scaling and we put it down to screen, so it just has that kind of pulpy texture of newspaper. And I might add some hue and saturation to certain layers. I think I'm just kind of going to take the edge off the coloring, so we're going to pre-compose that, and we're going to call that newspaper texture. We'll make new null object, and we'll call that our camera, and we're going to parent our newspaper texture to the camera layer. Now start adding some text. So really, we're just focusing on one word of this newspaper. In this circumstance, it's going to be the word strike. I'm going to pre-compose the text layer, and I'm going to call that text change. We're just going to toggle hold keyframes on pretty much everything, and we're just going to have everything just change a bunch of times. We're going to have the text go from one sentence to another sentence to another sentence to another sentence, maybe once every 5 frames, and messing around with the font. You need to make sure that between frames, the word strike kind of takes up about the same amount of space regardless of what font. I'm going to pick a font that I want to end on because I will hold these frames for a little bit longer just to kind of communicate the information. So we're also going to want the background to change. We're going to go to our newspaper texture composition, and we know that every change in the text change composition is every 5 frames. So that's what we'll do here. So we're just going to mess around with the position, rotation, scale, maybe the blender mode as well. You might even want to mess around with the hue and saturation, actually. Another thing to note is you should always be having these changes on a hold keyframe. You may want to turn off certain newspaper layers with the opacity function. And once you've got a few, you can kind of copy and paste the changes you've done. Now we need to add to the newspaper. I'm just going to copy and paste some text from an article that I found, and simple as that, just put it above and below. You might want to change the font of those as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some shape layers. I'm going to make a shape layer, and I call it underline, and I'll add a path and a stroke, a nice thick stroke, and I'm going to put underneath one of the strikes. I'm going to make a few of these different shape layers. A different one will be shown on different frames. On this one, I'm going to go for a box, and I've noticed that the box doesn't quite fit the word strike. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to also keyframe the scale so it fits that particular frame. And I'm just going to mess around with each and every frame. Maybe I'll add an invert on this one. The text is looking a little bit too perfect. I've got this metal texture, drag that into my top composition, and I'm going to add some curves to the metal composition, and then just really kind of up the contrast. And I'm going to go to my track matte box like we usually go to, but this time I'm going to go to Luma Matte. And that basically means I only want this text layer to be shown in places where the image is at its most dark. You'll start to see these little kind of flickers and kind of qualities in the text, which is really helping sell the effect. I'll add some roughen edges as well to the overall text change layer. And now that looks like a legitimate newspaper. I'll also mess around with the metal background texture so it's not uniform throughout the entire animation. So I'm going to add a null layer, put that right to the top of our top composition. We're going to parent everything to that null. I'm just going to do a slow pan in, maybe add a little blur just to the edges. And then you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to add a little bit of a fireball transition just behind the text as well. Grab that our fireball transition, pop that behind our text layer. Cool, there you have it guys. A nice easy win for your headline style animations. I will see you in the next video.